Welcome to episode 8 of Take Flight podcast. How is everyone doing?
Episode number 8. I'm good, man. I'm good.
got
Can't complain.
We've got myself, Daniel, Olu, Shoel, and Pabilo. And today we're going to talk to you about investments.
Jeez.
We also have a book recommendation, but you'll see that there's a slight difference. We have no hot topic because we really want to talk to you about investments, lay the foundations, and possibly do a series on this. We're doing this on the back of some recommendations we got in our DM. So what better to give the fans what they want? Let's get into it.
Take off, take flight with you. For we never fly, but we're flying.
Okay, guys. So, a couple of people have come to us talking to ask us to share our thoughts on investments. Typical questions have been, what do you need to start investing? What are the different types of investments? What are our own experiences with investing? What would we share? What have we learned from it? And also just to lay simple facts, because these people have said they haven't really got a financial knowledge. We're not financial experts. What we will say is based on our own experiences and our own opinions. But we thought it would be apposite that we share these thoughts and experiences with you. So who wants to kick it off?
Don't you need to put a disclaimer at the beginning?
I did.
No, I mean, like, any financial decisions or loss made. Nah, joking. I guess we should start off with what is an investment. Like, let's go back to the basics. So
I think we should give a simple term of what an investment is. I can share what I believe an investment is. An investment is the act of committing money or capital to an endeavor with expectation of obtaining an additional income or profit. Simple facts.
100%. No, I totally agree. I was actually gonna just take a step back for a second and say, for me, when you say investment, it's sort of a mindset. It's a way of thinking. So I tend to look at it as giving something up today in the hope of receiving a further upside later on down the line. And I know today's podcast is going to be focused more on the sort of financial side, but I tend to look at, for example, if I use my time today in the case of reading, I expect to be maybe more wiser at a later stage. So today obviously is very focused on finance, but I think the word investing can also be very broad across a number of different areas, and it's really a mindset.
I love the way you bring that up, P, because I know you say that that's a different topic, but I think it also intertwines with this topic, because when we start to go deeper about, like, how do you start investing? The first part of investing is knowledge. You can't invest if you don't have any knowledge. So we're trying to help out here to provide a little bit of knowledge. But before you do any investment, the first thing you need to do is invest in yourself by gaining some knowledge.
100%.
So leading on to that, Olu, and maybe sure you might want to, how does one start? So say I'm someone who has no information. I'm not privy to the financial markets. I don't know what's going on in the world of economics or investment. How would you say you would start? What's the foundation? What's the number one thing you would do?
Before that I would say first is saving. So you can't invest without, in most cases, you can't invest without any sort of capital, like you mentioned, in terms of investing. And I think you see so many videos on YouTube and places where it's like, you can make X amount, don't worry. Like, no, you need to start with a foundation. So setting up a budget, saving some money, having disposable income. Because I always say, whenever you want to invest or whenever you start off investing, you should really go in investing with a mindset of, this is disposable. It's not money that I need to sort of rely on to pay my rent or pay my bills. It needs to be disposable income that you can invest in a specific area for maybe a short period of time or a long period of time. So like I said, first thing is saving and having disposable income.
I would just add.
Yeah, what do you think?
Go ahead, Pete.
No, I'm going to say, what do you think?
I was just going to add to Ollie's point about saving. I think one trick, which actually I learned from Pabilo very early on in 2012, is to treat your saving as if it's a bill in itself. So when you get your income or your paycheck or whatever you're getting paid in your bank account, make sure you set aside the savings first before you start paying your bills, before you leave yourself money to play with at the end. Before, what I used to do, which is a common trap that I think a lot of people do, is you get paid, you pay your bills, you put some money aside to spend on a few things, and then whatever's left at the end of the month, you save. Now, for me, that was difficult to do because I'd end up spending a lot on enjoying things on myself.
on that lifestyle, yeah? Those jets, those private jets.
Making that, only for a couple of months, bear in mind, but just making that one switch was able to help me increase my savings exponentially. So that's one very, very quick tip, just to build on Olu's point.
Yeah, in terms of, in my opinion, in terms of where people can start, I think it boils down to what is your ultimate objective and aim that you're trying to achieve. It could be, I want to be able to receive or have a lump sum at the age of 55, 56. Or in some cases, people may say, look, I want to retire at my early 30s, early 40s. And once you've understood what the objective is, and it's very much aligned to your purpose, that's when I think you then start to look at what type of investments can suit that objective. Because as we're going to go throughout this podcast, there are many different types of investments you can get into, all which carry a different risk appetite and profile, which have to suit, ultimately, I think, the objective.
I think since we're going on to the point of different types of investments, maybe we can come back to what do you need to start investing? But if we just quickly outline the different types of investments that there are. So I think there are maybe four main ones. So growth investments, which are typically shares. You also have property, can be considered a growth investment because the prices of the house price can rise substantially over a medium to long term period. You also have cash. So that's typically
worst investment.
Yeah, everyday bank accounts with high interest saving accounts and term deposits, but they typically carry the lowest potential returns of all investment types. You also have fixed interest, which commonly people know as bonds, which are essentially when the governments or companies borrow money from investors and pay them at a rate of interest in return. So those are the four main types. So going back to how do you start, or what do you need to start investing? I will share an experience myself. So I started investing. When I say investing, my start point was shares, and I started in 2013. And the way I did it was I'd get paid every month, but also put money aside that I essentially, what my colleague said, oh, you just have a risky bank account, and that's how he termed it. So at the end of every month, I'll take some money aside, and I'll start investing in companies that I had a keen interest in. I thought, why not invest in companies which you might use the product or service?
100%.
Or ones that you actually have an interest in. So I think my first one may have been, I can't remember now actually, but I'll tell you the different shares I have in companies. And that's how I started. And I just went every month, and over time I just increased my amount, my position, number of shares of that company every month, every year. Sometimes sold them, and we'll get into it later about buying and selling and how you do it.
I love that story then.
So I started 6-7 years ago. Started investing, and now I have Twitter. I have shares in Twitter, Royal Mail, Seplat, Capita, Computer Center, Aston Martin when they went IPO a few months ago, Boohoo, and the last one, I don't know if I said Twitter, but another one as well. And I must say, not all of them have made me good money. Some of them have made me some losses, but
we could talk about that. We could talk about that in like more. I think
the last one's Glencore. That's it.
Glencore. No, Daniel, mine is sort of similar to you. I think I started with the cash one. I think everyone has the ISA, and then I realized early on, this was when I just was at university. You put some money aside, you realize it just didn't make any sense. You were basically just giving the bank your money to use and invest, which is what they do. And they give you like a nominal amount. So what I started was with my workplace, they have a shares program. So what happens, I think similar to what Shawal says, it's better to invest or decide how much you want to save and invest at the beginning versus just living your life and then whatever you have at the end. So what my workplace do is every month you can nominate a certain amount of your salary to go into the company shares. So you can either do 10% or let's say £250 to invest in the company shares. And what they would do as well is on top of that, they would give you either 10% or 15% free shares on top of what you've invested. So when I started as an intern, my brother, and luckily I had my brother around, he was like, yo, it's free money. Why don't you invest? Instead of you spending it, you're coming straight out of university. It's money you've never experienced. You never received that much salary, so you won't miss it if you're already invested in the company. So that's how I started, and I've been doing that for now 6-7 years, where I've been investing a certain percentage of my salary to the company and getting that 10-15% on top.
Sounds good.
Yeah, may I remind both of you, your first investment was not what you're displaying now.
What was it?
The
our
Royal Mail.
first investments. No. Our first investments. Wait. Let me finish.
This is a Take Flight podcast.
This is a good point. Our first investments was when we were trading dummy stock at university.
No, but that's our dissertation. That was not.
No. This was before. Remember when we had this sort of friendly competition where we actually signed up?
Was it the Merrill Lynch one?
I think it was something similar to Merrill Lynch. But I think the point is that this is actually a great way for people who are thinking about trading in stock. They want to have a small piece or equity of a particular company. Like you said, Daniel, many of us know a lot about Adidas, Nike, Apple, Facebook, and it would be really, really cool whilst you have that product in you and to also own a piece of it as well. But I think a great way to learn is to trade dummy stock, right? So just understand the process of following a company, trying to learn more about that company and see how that then affects the share price over a given point in time. So I think that was really a good sort of taste for us. I think it was back in our first year of university, second year of university, and we made gains, we made losses, and then I think we took that energy into actually investing some of our own capital later down the line.
Yeah, I think to mention, just to give, I think there are some financial terms that are often thrown out there. So if we just kind of define a few. So when we say shares, this is typically the equity market on a stock exchange. So for example, Facebook or Apple, you can buy shares, equity stock in that company. So if they do well, you can receive dividends, which can be paid quarterly, semi-annually or yearly. This will be based on the number of shares you hold in the company, and they give you percentage back to their shareholders. Of course, the more shares you have, the more you receive as a dividend. But of course, you have to pay tax on this. Another term you may have heard.
I was going to say, you do?
You got to talk to me. You got to talk to me as well. We can help you with that. Direct message me.
When he says you need to pay tax, it's best to get tax advice from a accountant or someone. Yeah. There's ways to minimize the tax.
You want to get a piece of some Swiss shares. Anyway, next episode.
You may also hear a term called a portfolio. So portfolio is typically kind of all of your investments in one. So as I said, I have eight companies that I have shares in, and that essentially is my portfolio. So when you hear portfolio, it's almost the accumulation of all of your different assets that you have invested in, and it makes up what is called your portfolio.
And some people think that's you minimize your risk by having it. It's like, don't have all your eggs in one basket.
So typically we mentioned about having the different investments. So your portfolio could be made up of fixed interest. So the bonds, it could be cash equity, it could be property, it could be some other types of investments or ETFs, mutual funds, which we won't go into. But those are ones where, for example, a fund could be you don't have enough money right now to invest in to buy, say, one share in Facebook, but you can buy a fund which has a wider range or has a diverse portfolio, and then you can reap the returns on that essentially. So those are different types and some terminology. If there are any more terms you want to hear about, feel free to DM us, or we can share some links with you that can provide some more information.
Or my favorite website, which is called Google. Like Google it, which I like to say to people. It sometimes saves you,
But going back,
I think it's a good point actually, Daniel, that you're explaining some of these terms, because I think a lot of people are quite intimidated by a lot of this terminology, and once they hear these words being spoken in conversation, some people actually switch off. Some people are like, oh, it sounds too complicated. But I think the most costly thing anyone can do is become ignorant to those financial terms. So if you really want to invest, if you really want to become educated on it, exactly what Ollie was saying, there's Google. If you know people that are investing or that know a little bit more than you, go ask them about it. So how, Daniel, you were saying for people to DM us, there may be people that are around you that may even know. There probably is a lot of people that know a lot more than what us four know combined. And if you know someone like that near you, go up to them and speak to them. Because if you're afraid of it, it will cost you in the long run, because inflation is real. Prices of things will go up, and the bank account is not giving you an interest rate high enough to compensate for it. So if you don't invest, it is a fact you will be losing out. So don't let your ignorance cost you too much.
Completely agree, because even when I bought Boohoo back September 2016 or so, at the time I was buying it, I had pondered it for a while, and I was speaking to a friend of mine who bought quite a large amount of quite a large number of shares in it. And if I bought it when I wanted to, the time I bought it, the price had tripled. So already I could have, tripled my initial investment on that. It's not doing too well right now, but hopefully the retail market picks up.
But sometimes, and it's good you mentioned that, because that's happened to me a couple of times as well, and it's going to happen to a few people on the call. There's going to be times where you're going to miss out on opportunities. I think Warren Buffett even talks about this, is trying to take away sometimes that emotional connection to stuff. Because if you buy shares, look at it every day, week, whatever, it's mentally it's going to be straining for you. So it's like you're not gonna succeed in every single investment that you do. But what you need to do is, when you realize a formula and you can do it right, is constantly follow that formula. So in most cases, you find people that were successful in just one or two investments, and they're seeing their portfolio increase by a large amount. So don't always look at those missed opportunities, is what I always say. It's what did you learn from it? So you learn, okay, don't ponder too much when you see a good opportunity. Now, if that same opportunity comes up, you'll be able to invest. I never look at an investment as, oh, that was my one chance of making it. That was my one chance of investing. I more look at it as, okay, I didn't invest at the right time, but what did I learn from that particular situation that I can take on to the future?
Yeah, I think it again goes back to the point of what ultimately is your objective, because each and every investment has to suit your objective, your goal, and your purpose. Otherwise, it's you're not necessarily going to be fulfilled along the journey, and it's not necessarily going to sit right with you. So, for example, if I tend to look at a lot of my investments as very long term, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years.
Yeah, same.
And so I won't be looking at sort of my share portfolio. I'll probably look at it twice a year. And so, but that's the approach that I take. Whereas some people may decide to want to be a trader, where they're actually monitoring the upside and downside on a weekly or monthly basis and want to exit out early. So again, there is no right or wrong. I think it just comes down to what it is that you are trying to achieve financially, and then aligning your sort of investments to your style, preference, and risk profile.
Why don't we go into some detail? Oh, no, sorry. I was just going to say, why don't we go into some detail about like how we purchase shares? Like, how do we start? And then like just walking through like tangible steps of what we do there. But now finish off. Pete.
Yeah, I was actually great point, a great segue. I was actually going to say one of the biggest learnings, and I think we can talk about maybe one of the investments for me that didn't work very well. I think if we stay in the space of looking to invest in company stock, so your Apple, your Facebook, your Twitter, I think it's very important that you do the necessary research to really understand the company, sort of the pipeline, the future. Try to have an opinion. I think Warren Buffett said it very well. He said, at some point in time, a company will be run by someone who doesn't know what they're doing. So it's very important that you understand the mechanics of the company, because ultimately that's what's going to sort of carry it for the long term. So tip number one is to really understand as best as you can and form an opinion on that particular company in terms of pipeline, where it stands today and where it's going. And the reason why I say that is because one of the sort of investments that didn't work so well, and I think we can all perhaps chip in, is in the space of cryptocurrency.
Oh, so it wasn't only me that invested in cryptocurrency, huh?
Yeah, it wasn't just you.
Everyone was crying on the call last week.
I think this was a perfect example of where you can actually go wrong, because I don't know if I think about it, it was pretty much a speculation market. It was a rush. I didn't probably take time to think about how does this suit my objectives. Well, I probably just said, you know what, if I put money in now, it's going to go up in the next week by X amount, so I'm going to make a lot. So maybe that was what, but that was a very, you don't get something for nothing. And so, rightly so, I lost it all, and I should have lost it all because I did not take the time out to learn and try to understand the mechanics behind it. So I deserve to lose the share that I put in.
But
so
then,
I think,
but then one key thing in investing is always be prepared. Never be prepared to lose more. What's the word? What am I trying to say?
Exactly. That was what. Yes. Only invest what you're prepared to lose.
Yeah.
And also another thing as well. Not only prepared to lose, but aim to invest what you don't need anytime soon. Because a lot of us now are sort of in our teenage younger years. But if you're sort of you have a family, 3-4 kids, and any investment you put aside at that age is could be used for schooling or something quite significant. So it's putting aside capital and resource which you may not need or for some time.
Yeah.
So if we go back to kind of not basics, but just to, for our listeners that are hopefully still tuned in with us, the one thing to know is, the stock market is volatile. It goes up, it can go down. You can make money, you can lose money. But the one key difference between what we're talking about investing and what Pabilo touched on trading is when you're trading, you're probably monitoring the markets daily. You might be looking at opportunities to take advantage of any sudden drops or rises. But you're looking probably at 10% a month that you probably want to make when you're trading. Whereas investment, you're
10% a month.
Yeah, 10%.
Whoa.
Or more than 10. Yeah,
Give
10%
you
or
a
more.
tips, Daniel. 10% a month. Jeez.
But investment, you're probably looking at 10% a year. So as you can see, the investment is more for the long haul as well, whereas trading is the short, very, very short term. And something one person I really admire is Warren Buffett. I think he's financially astute. He's very intelligent. Berkshire Hathaway, don't even try and look at the share price because all of us combined couldn't even buy one share, to be honest. I'm not even going to lie. But something that he does every single morning is, of course, he's got large investments in a number of different companies, Coca-Cola, Google, etc., etc. Any big company, trust me, he's got shares in it. But as he shaves in the morning, he tells his wife either $2.61, $2.95, or $3.17. And she puts an amount in a little cup in his car. And what that means is, depending on how the investments or his investments are doing, if he's feeling a bit prosperous, if he's not feeling so prosperous, he'll go for $2.61 at McDonald's, which he has every single, which is sausage patties, and then he pours himself a Coke. If he's feeling a bit happier, $3.17 will get him a bacon and egg cheese biscuit. And if the markets are down, he'll go for the $2.95. And even him, he's got shares in McDonald's, he's got share in Coca-Cola, but he still watches his coins, is what people call it these days. They're coins. So he's still being aware, and he won't spend, frugally. He's very smart with his money, and I just admire that about him. The fact that he's a billionaire in the top 5 richest in the world, but yet he's still very, very smart with his money.
And then, by even what you could also do is with his company, they do like the annual reports, which can sometimes be lengthy, but it's a good read in terms of understanding how they think about buying companies and shares and stuff like that. So that's a good read. I think and just go into how I think about when I buy shares. So firstly, you need to have a source or way to purchase shares. So I use a website or an app called Interactive Investor. What do you guys use to invest? Like,
I use the same one, Oli.
Use the same one? Yeah.
I use the online platform Interactive Investor, and for those listening, there are other platforms such as Vanguard, but their fees are quite high. There's also Nutmeg, and
the fees are quite high for a reason. Look into Vanguard, solid.
they're various
solid.
They're various platforms. So
solid.
So,
how much did they pay you for that sponsorship? How much did they? Because I didn't see any of that check. How much did they pay you for that sponsorship? No, but I think the first thing is
we need more episodes. But
finding a platform. Go ahead. So finding a way that you can invest. You can easily Google it, find it. Some of them, like we mentioned, have a fee. The one I use, which is Interactive Investor, charges you £25 a quarter. So you're paying like $100,
and also a fee on every stock you buy or sell.
Yeah, but that's when you buy, you get a transaction fee. So you're looking at £100 just to be able to have access to their platform. But that £100 goes into your portfolio. When you do invest, they'll take the fees from it. So that's first, understand and find a platform that you can invest. Then, like I think most of the people have spoken about, is see investing and buying shares as you actually investing in a company, owning part of that company. So like we talked about cryptocurrency, my biggest mistake was not truly understanding the business and the mechanic of cryptocurrency. So if I want to invest, let's take Amazon, which is one that I invest in and I've got shares in. I understand, how does Amazon make money? As simple as that. How does a company generate and make money? Then I look, okay, based on how they make money, do I feel like they're number 1 or 2 in their industry? So Amazon, they make money from amzn.to, but they also have like the AWS. Amazon owns so many different industries. And then yes, they're number 1 or 2 in most of the industries that they're in. Then the next thing I like to do, which is my little trick, is I then go into, like, I got an Excel sheet, which maybe in the future we'll share about, an Excel sheet where I start to look at some of their financial metrics. And now, to keep it simple for the guys on the phone, that listening, because I don't want to go too much into the detail, but simple stuff is like, are their revenue going up? Is their revenue going up over a period of time? Yep. And then the most important thing I do is when their stock price drops based on some sort of news, because typically when news comes, the price might drop. Then I look to invest because I know, okay, I've looked at the financials, the business is still stable. Let me invest now while everyone's reacting to the price dropping, and then that will sort of generate as it goes on. So,
and I think this is extremely important because I touched on it earlier in terms of it's important for the individual to have an opinion. You don't have to know everything about the company because that's also impossible. You don't work for the company, so there's only so much information you can grasp. But by having an opinion and kind of having that sort of insight as to when something changes within the company or they release a set of news, what that will maybe mean for the share price is really, really important because there are scenarios where, for example, and we saw it with Facebook not too long ago, where the share price dropped significantly. Now, if you understand and you believe in Facebook and their business model, what you would do at that point in time, not panic, but you'd probably buy more shares.
You know what I did when that happened? I think it dropped by 20%. I bought 10 shares that day. As soon as it dropped, I was like, do I trust their business model? Yes. Everyone's reacting now. Bang. 10 shares.
Just to add, and the reason why I also think that's very important to have your own opinion is because if Daniel said to me tomorrow, hey, P, I'm looking to invest in XYZ, that's great because that suits your investment style, your risk profile, and your objectives. It wouldn't necessarily make sense for me to jump on exactly what he's done. So it's really important to take the time out to do your own research. In the end, you may conclude, look, I want to invest in the same shares that Daniel's investing, but at least you've taken that time out to understand how does it fit my overall portfolio. So it doesn't actually. I mean, you could go around the world and asking, what do you invest in and what do you other people, but in the end, you have to really center it to what it is that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, you could. Well, to be honest, you can really, really go to town with the analysis and what you want to do in terms of finding out what's available. You wouldn't believe the amount of information that's publicly available for companies, stocks, all the financial, what Pab was talking about was the fundamentals, understanding how the company performs, understanding the balance sheet, even going as far as what are they expected to earn in Q3 of 2019, Q4 of 2019. And when it comes closer to the time and when they do announce and report on their earnings, did they beat estimates? Did they underperform, etc., etc.? So there's a lot and a vast amount of information that's publicly available that you can find on any company. They do have to provide this by law, so don't feel like they're hiding anything. So it's really, really good. There's a lot of information. I would encourage you, if there is something or a company you're thinking of following or investing in, there's no better way to start.
I think
what's the one? I think because you mentioned that there's so much information. I think it would be good if we go around and say what is the one metric or stat that we rank the highest when it comes to deciding when we buy shares. I think that would be good to just go around and say what's the one thing that we rank the highest.
I typically look at the performance over the last 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
For me, I would say future pipeline.
Yeah.
I think for me, there was a couple of years ago where I was trying to get a bit too analytical, and I realized it was kind of paralyzing me to take any decisions. So actually nowadays I keep it very, very simple when it comes to shares anyway, because I try to invest in companies that the product or the main business of that company is something that I'm personally using and that I see the people around me using more and more and more. So just some examples of companies that I've invested in on the back of that. Netflix is one of them. Apple is another one a few years ago now. And even actually two, which is quite funny why I invested in them. Adidas, I bought shares in Adidas when they started to partner up with Kanye West, because I personally loved Kanye West a lot when he was younger.
Which Kanye? Old Kanye or new Kanye?
Yeah,
Which
Kanye
do you love?
Kanye, but to be honest, I like the Kanye that's working with Adidas because he's generated a lot of revenue for them, especially in North America. So that was the reason why I invested in them. And I saw more and more people, even myself, I bought Yeezy trainers and I'm not a trainer guy. So that was one thing. And then the final example that I would give is Diageo, because when DJ Khaled started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, you saw him talk about Ciroc vodka a lot, and then obviously everyone knows P. Diddy, that's P. Diddy's company. So I did a bit of research and I was like, which company is behind this brand? Because P. Diddy's promoting it, but I know he doesn't own the company that runs Ciroc. Then I realized Ciroc is a vodka which is part of Diageo, which is like a conglomerate with lots of alcohols underneath that brand, and Diageo was one of them. And actually, after seeing how DJ Khaled's Snapchat popped off, I realized, okay, you see Ciroc vodka a lot more now in the airports when I was traveling and in every music video. So for me, I've kept it very, very simple. Anything that I see that's expanding within my own eyes or in the circle that I'm around, I try to invest in it, because then you also have a vested interest in using their product as well.
Dope.
One thing I
And
would
I
say, even like
just with my one.
even, oh,
So
sorry.
my one is I look at the CEO who's running the business.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I look at their track record and see how are they doing. As so, like Elon Musk, I don't bet against that guy. Like, there's so many times I we're like, oh, I should invest, whatever. Like, there's so many CEOs that you can look at. Where Amazon as well, Bezos, you don't bet against that guy. So I look at the CEO, whoever is running the company, and I invest sometimes based on that.
Okay, so thank you for listening. We've gone very basic, giving you an overview about investing primarily in the stock market. Next week, we'll focus more on property, give you a flavor of that, as again, very basic. And over time, if you want, we can build upon that those series over time. But just to give you a quick wrap, so we said that what is an investment? So we said that an investment is something where you typically would put money in to get a return in the future. That's it. Essentially, you put money in and expect to gain a profit in the future. Different types of investments. So you have shares, the stock market, you have property, you have cash, and you have bonds. And to start, you need to find an online platform or someone where you can actually buy the stock. Typically, you have a fee to buy each share, or every purchase, every transaction, to buy and also to sell. And different platforms may charge you quarterly fees. You don't need a large amount of money to start investing, as I think people are often are misconstrued thinking, oh, I need £1,000, I need 2,000. You can start off with £20 and you can invest £20 every single month. It's fine to start off small and over time gradually build up that sum. And that's about it, really. Simple steps.
And get started. The younger
started.
you get, there's something called compounding. The younger you start, the better it works out, man. Start early. Even if it's £10 or £20 a month, start early.
And don't let things scare you as well. There's people around you that know a lot, and there's a thing that Olu said is called Google, which can give you a lot of extremely valuable information for free. So don't play yourself.
And don't be afraid to lose money. Play with a small amount, see how it goes, and build over time. Seriously, losing is the best way to learn, especially in the stock market.
100%.
Okay, so now let's move on to our book review section. So this week is going to be led by Daniel Johnson. So let's get started.
On Instagram, it's @curated by DJ. Go ahead.
I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking. Oh, so the book I'm going to share with you this week is a book by John C. Maxwell, and the book is titled Be All You Can Be. I read this book a few years ago. I'm going to reread it actually, because I don't feel like you can always digest everything in a book on the first read. I think it's appropriate and imperative to us that we read books several times to learn different things as we read it, as I'm sure at different seasons in life, different things would stand out to us. So this book essentially gives you the tools you need to be all you can be in life. And it's a powerful book, I would say. We're filled with easy to grasp truths that you can put to work right away. As you probably can tell from the books I've shared, I like books that you can put into practice and really have a tangible result. Not just a book that gives you knowledge, but a book that you can gain information and do. I don't say, because for example, there's a saying that people say knowledge is power. I don't believe in that statement. I believe implemented knowledge is power, because you can have a whole load of knowledge in your head and never use it.
Jeez. I was waiting for your big boy
100%.
quote. I was waiting for it. Now,
it's not-
what's it, 40 minutes in? So I'm happy that...
That's not a quote, that's a fact.
That's a fact.
That's a fact.
So yeah, ask me some questions. So what you want to know? What would you want to know about the book? I can go on and go on.
Yeah,
but,
great to share your top 3 takeaways, and then we can see if that resonates with us.
Okay, so the top things I took away from the book were it separates. It's very detailed teaching, and it's not the first book I've read by him, so I'm quite familiar with him as a person, as an author. So it's easy for me to kind of have that almost distant relationship with him. But he has some very, very poignant quotes in the book. If I share a few, and you can get a flavor of what type of things he's talking about. He says, that if we have, and this relates to a lot of what we've been talking about in previous episodes, so it almost ties in. It says, if we have no goals, we won't recognize failure. But if we're stretching for success, we will fail from time to time. And when you stop stretching, you become boring.
Might have to use that for Instagram later then. Cheers for that.
Anyway, he mentions a number of things. I don't want to just keep reading, but essentially what the book, he talks about four different categories about knowing, know, show, go, and grow. So that's know, show, go, and grow. So when I say know, it's discover the principles fulfilling your God-given potential. Then when it comes to show, learn how to model those principles so others can see them at work. To go, roll up your sleeves and get into the world and live out what you've learned. And when you grow, experience living at your full potential, continually assessing your progress. As a result, you'll gain considerable hope for the future.
So Daniel, for that first point, the know, what tools does it give you to, because I think that's probably the hardest part, really knowing your like purpose and potential. What tools does it provide?
So he sets it out by just, at the same time as talking, he teaches and he lets you kind of reassess and reevaluate your own life. So as he's speaking about things, and to be honest, the things that he mentions aren't groundbreaking. There's sometimes you need a reminder of just the simple truths in life that just wake up something inside of you for you to take action and to really reconsider what you're doing and to, just to change that around. So it's just even knowing yourself, knowing how you like to, how you operate, what gets you ticking, what can make you successful, but also knowing that you have purpose on this earth and you have potential inside of you that needs to be unlocked and released. So he's always talking about releasing things that are not allowing to imprison the splendor. Release your imprisoned splendor so you can flourish and be successful.
Daniel, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Is there anything in the book that you disagree with?
Good question.
That's a very good question. Very, very good question.
I mean, it could be. I mean, it sounds like a great book from the way you've explained it. So it could be a high likelihood that there's nothing that you actually disagree with.
There should be, because I remember one podcast when Daniel was having a go at me where I was like, great mind think alike, and Daniel was like something about fools really differ or something like that.
Ollie's been waiting so many episodes to hit you back with that line, Daniel. Now's his time.
Don't prove me right.
I would say, it's some. I'm gonna be quite picky, only because of the title of the book. Okay, so John Maxwell he typically writes books on leadership, the 25 laws of leadership, etc. So this book, it kind of delved into leadership a bit, which I only say from the title you wouldn't like, but the reality is in life we're all leaders, no matter whether we want to confess it or not. We're always leading someone. There's always someone looking at us. So that's the only bit I would kind of, if I had to be picky, that's what I would pick out. Does that satisfy your question?
Not really. But what I was going to say,
I think you're trying to get out of that, Daniel. You're trying to get out of it.
No, I think it's very clear that he didn't really have any points he disagreed with. He just kind of, he's very much of a yes man when you read that book. I have a question. I have a question. Was there anything that surprised you that you haven't read or come across before from that book?
I would say, when it comes to these types of books, people like to over complicate things. But he puts down facts very clearly and concisely, and almost commit yourself to God in what you're doing. It's very clear, very simple. And that's what I like about it. It's a very simplistic book, a bit like the books you've been reading, with 20 pages and pictures in it.
Yo, who saw P's Instagram post about like I read 52 books last year or something like that? Yeah. I was gonna comment with it all picture books. So
for listeners who aren't following Pabilo on Instagram, so he's got an Instagram, Pabilo Timbo, and he shared a post recently of him in a library. And him saying,
it wasn't the library, bro.
Okay, you were in, with some ostentatious surroundings, very extravagant, flamboyant, flashy. But anyway,
in my sitting room.
Okay.
No, but the thing is, the only thing.
No. Let him finish.
Go ahead.
He was talking about how last year he set himself a goal of reading 52 books, so that's equals to one a week, which he achieved. So I think that no, that's highly commendable. I'm not going to take that away. That is
No,
really.
I know.
What I was going to say is I think you should be taking book recommendations for the next year.
I just want to know. I want to know the size of these books, the length of these books.
No. This is what I found funny because when there was a comment, not to digress from the point from this book review that we're having now, but there was a comment around how long are these books, and the reason why I laughed is because you guys have asked me similar questions. But what I do find interesting, and we keep it anonymous, is the number of people or the lack of people that hit me up on a direct message asking for recommendations. Yeah. So it was very telling, and in terms of, I would have liked to have seen a lot more people reach out to say, happy if you could share. And there were some people who I weren't surprised that basically immediately said, please share your list. So, but no, I have a technique which helps, which we can probably discuss on another episode. But
can I just say,
game changer.
just to vouch for Pabilo, because I've seen his flat in Switzerland and the bookshelf that he has, and it is actually round packed with books. So he has got a.
All that means is he purchased a lot of books. It doesn't mean he read them.
He does have a lot.
I'm not saying anything.
No,
but
I understand it's the hate. It's mistaken for love. It's all cool. I got it. It's all good, baby. It's all good.
What was that, P? What was that question again that you had for Daniel?
Oh yeah, sorry. The question was he didn't answer it. It's fine.
That's what I'm putting it back.
The question was there anything that surprised you, or
I did. I said about how he simply. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, but the reason why I asked you is because a lot of these books, once you've read enough personal development books, leadership books, they pretty much regurgitate the same message.
Agreed.
So that's why I was kind of picking to understand: was there anything here different than what you've heard before?
I can't.
Because that's really the gem.
I can't. To answer that point, I read this book. The first time I read this book was 10 years ago, so 2009. Wow. So it was one of the kind of books I was reading that self-help arena remit of help, discovering yourself and pushing your potential. So I can't really say. Of course, I remember the book. I'm rereading it, but so it'll be good to ask that question in a few weeks' time when I finished it again. Cool. Because of course, first time around, nothing really stood out to me. But what I would say is when I did first read it, I was in my teens when I read the book the first time round, and someone, going off to university, it, even at a young age, it allowed me to reflect a lot about my life and even think about the future and decisions I make and choices I make on a daily basis and the ramifications and consequences it could have in the future. And I would certainly recommend the book for those who are maybe going through some life-changing instances at the moment, or trying to figure out what is the best thing for them to do or how to do things, and also being confident in the decision you're making. Everyone can make decisions, but also you want to be confident in the decision that you do make. So that's what I would suggest it. If you want to hear more, feel free to hit me up.
I mean, that's a great way to close. So Daniel, do you want to say the name and author of the book again?
Yep. So the book is by John C. Maxwell, titled Be All You Can Be. John C. Maxwell, Be All You Can Be.
And when this episode goes out, if people tag us in the stories, you're going to buy them a copy of this book as a prize?
I don't know. I'll see what my portfolio is saying. If my portfolio is green, yeah, why not? If my portfolio is making me some money, why not?
Cool. Say no more.
For those who've listened to the end, thank you very much for listening. We hope you found it insightful and enlightening. Next week, we'll talk about property and give you an overview on that. If you have any feedback, suggestions, or comments for us, please hit us up on Instagram at Take Flight Podcast. And if you don't have Instagram but still like to contact us, please email us at takeflightpodcast@gmail.com.
Woo! We made it to episode 8, guys. Amazing job.
Have a great week, guys.
Take off, take